You are on ABC Radio National. Marius Benson with you for Radio National Breakfast. The draft legislation for the federal government's carbon tax has been released for public comment. 13 pieces of legislation form the backbone of the carbon tax package. For those in the business of developing clean energy technologies, the legislation holds many opportunities and potential profits. The global interest in the development of products and materials that cut pollution has been likened to a new gold rush, as our business editor Cheryl Bagwell reports.
Well, some see the carbon tax as a cost that the Australian economy can't afford. But there are those in the business of developing clean energy technologies like solar who see it as a golden opportunity for Australia to cash in on a new industrial age.
Well, I suppose in some ways you could see it as a gold rush from the perspective that, there is very, very strong investment.
Dr Stuart Wenham is Director of the University of New South Wales Photovoltaic Centre of Excellence and a world-leading solar cell inventor. He's also Chief Technical Officer at the largest solar panel maker in the world, Suntech. Suntech was founded by Chinese-born Zhen Grongji, a graduate of the University of New South Wales and now one of the world's wealthiest businessmen.
Suntech is very prominent in terms of funding research here in Australia to develop new technology. And I think, the carbon tax will have two, important benefits for the industry. One is it will provide a valuable source of income that can help with the ongoing development and utilisation of the technology. But in addition to that, just changing, the relative costs of fossil fuel generated electricity versus that coming from photovoltaics will automatically stimulate the industry quite significantly. And it's already the fastest growing industry in the world internationally. It's now a $100 billion a year industry, and the inclusion of a carbon tax, both in Australia and internationally, will certainly accelerate the use of this technology.
Other renewable technologies like wind, wave and geothermal are also set to benefit from a carbon tax and the increased investment that will flow from it. Anthony Hobley is Global Head of Climate Change at Norton Rose, Australia.
The money that's been made available through the Climate Change Finance Corporation, the Renewable Energy Authority and the sort of Clean Technology Programme is some $15 billion. If you look at the UK's recently announced Green Investment Bank, it has about $4.8 billion. So the proposals here sort of trump what the UK is trying to do 3 times over. Although I understand Korea is making twice as much money available for sort of green technology and low carbon investment. So that again puts Australia somewhere in the middle. But I think, it'll allow Australia, with the sort of, the ingenuity and the sort of hard-working nature, I think, of Australians, to really give most other countries a run for their money if they put the right sort of policy and regulatory framework in place.
Indeed, Anthony Hobley says if Australians need proof that business sees profits in clean energy, they need look no further than the heavyweight companies lining up to invest in the sector around the globe.
Jeff Immelt, the CEO and chairman of one of, or if not the world's biggest company, General Electric, is on record saying this is the biggest business opportunity of the 21st century. I mean, GE have this Eco-Imagination campaign where they invested 5 years ago, $5 billion, and have a sort of audited return of $70 billion US dollars on the technology they have developed and sold. So I think the opportunities are huge.
That's certainly a view shared by the former British Prime Minister Tony Blair. Speaking at a news conference with Julia Gillard in Canberra this week, he said Australia's plans to invest the proceeds of its carbon tax into clean energy projects were not out of step with the rest of the world.
Despite Copenhagen not resulting in agreements and so on, there's a pretty clear move worldwide to shift away from dependence on carbon. Now, that I think that's the future. And for us, therefore, in Europe particularly, we're putting a lot of effort into developing clean technology industries for the future. What is interesting in a place like California now is I would say there's a paradigm shift going on from information technology to clean and green technology as the new wave of innovation for the future. And all of this I actually find immensely exciting.
But it won't be easy money, as evidenced by the recent collapse of the New South Wales solar and wind energy provider Rewind Energy. Professor Vassilios Agelidis is Director of the Australian Energy Research Institute at the University of New South Wales. He says while Australia is good at coming up with ideas, it's not so good at bringing those ideas to the market or stimulating manufacture in Australia.
We actually import most of the components of the high-tech products that we use to build wind farms. That's the turbines, the machines internally, the electronics and the control. The same thing applies for the PV farms that have been scheduled to be developed in Australia. So what is very important for the government to understand is that we have to not just import technology that other countries develop, but start stimulating the industry and move all the ideas from the R&D laboratories into the market so that we create high-tech R&D and commercial and, I suppose, development jobs locally here in Australia.
Professor Agelidis says a big problem is that too many skilled engineers are being tempted into well-paid jobs in mining and not enough into roles developing the new green technologies and products of the future. And he says that won't necessarily change come July 1 next year when the carbon tax is due to start.
A lot of people believe that 1st of July we'll start solving the problem. Not really. That is a long-term vision, and that is actually requiring a lot of, I suppose, to a certain degree, painful changes that we have to make to adapt to a new environment, and that's going to be hard.
That is Vassilios Agelidis, Professor of Electrical Engineering and Director of the Australian Energy Research Institute at the University of New South Wales, ending that report from our business editor, Cheryl Bagwell.